Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on sustainable fashion and Indian perspective. Co-create opportunities for building circular, sustainable textile and fashion. Sustainable fashion, also known as eco-fashion, is a movement and process of fostering change to fashion products and the fashion systems towards greater ecological integrity and social justice. Sustainable fashion concerns more than just addressing fashion textiles or products. It addresses the entire manner in which clothing is produced, who produces it, and how long the lifespan of a product is before it reaches the landfill. Sustainable fashion encourages the use of locally produced biodegradable fabrics, which have little to no adverse effects on the environment. This sustainable movement combats the huge carbon footprint that fast fashion has created by reducing CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions, etc. Sustainable fashion deals with considering fashion from the perspective of a variety of stakeholders, ranging from contemporary producers and consumers of clothes to future producers and consumers. Sustainable fashion impacts more than just people. It plays a direct role in positively impacting the climate crisis by combating fast fashion and its disastrous effects on pollution, etc. Sustainable fashion is the responsibility of the citizens, the public sector, the private sector, and all the stakeholders. With this, I would like to introduce today's panel, our August panel, who will be deliberating on the topic of sustainable fashion with us. I take this pleasure to introduce Mr. Christoph Schroeder, Global VP, Industry Business Unit Retail, SAP, Mr. Ajit Pattnaik, Head Sustainability Lifestyle Business, Raymonds Limited. We have got Mr. Naresh Tyagi, Chief Sustainability Officer, Abfrl. We have got Mr. Rohan Batra, Head CSR and Sustainability, House of Anita Dongre. We have got Mr. Tushar Jindal, Head Sustainability Responsible Supply Chain and CSR, Arvind Fashions Limited. We have got Mr. Umashankar Mahapatra, Senior Vice President, Innovation and Sustainability Business Head, Health and Hygiene, Wellspun India Limited. And we have got Mr. James Veale, President and Co-founder, Green Token by SAP. And last but not the least, we have got Mr. Madhav Nishtala, Director, Retail Industry and Customer Advisory, SAP India. With this, I now request Mr. Christoph Schroeder, Global VP, Industry Business Unit, Retail, SAP, to share SAP industry point of view. Over to you, Christoph.
Yeah, thank you so much for the nice introduction, and really glad to be part of this impressive panel with so many well-known brands from India. And yeah, I'd like to set the scene a little bit to talk about why SAP is putting an emphasis on sustainability as you do. Where do we see the trends? Where do we see our playground? And then I look forward to having a nice discussion. So let's dive into that. So first of all, setting the scene, it's really about, and we talked about this, that everyone is making sustainability now a priorities, whether it's CEOs, whether it's the consumers, whether it's us as people. So it became from a kind of nice to have factor to really a kind of common topic across the enterprise. There are so many topics to be addressed, and obviously it's driven mostly by the consumers because they are shifting to more sustainable products and services. Also, the new generation is more keen to kind of map their values with the values of a company, and obviously there is the topic of sustainability, which makes it an important asset. But that's not the only one. Also, we have to be honest to ourselves. It's also about profitability, and we see a lot of investors integrating ESG into their investment decisions. So that's why another driver comes from sustainable investing, and we see that growth in in the last couple of years really like kind of exploding. So that's an important aspect. Another direction where, depending on the industry, we also see a big trend is obviously legislation that across the globe, worldwide, there are many, for example, carbon pricing initiatives in place that are either already in place or scheduled or in implementation. So that's why also companies such as you and us as software providers need to kind of align to it and make sure that we are compliant with all this. And also, in my role of being the chief solution owner for fashion, I talk to many global fashion companies, and the war for talent is omnipresent. And also as employees, we more and more base our choice of an employer, whether it is a sustainable brand, whether it's a sustainable company. So that's kind of the situation where we are in. And obviously there are many topics, and we need to kind of structure that a little bit also from an SAP perspective. Now, why is SAP in the game? First of all, sustainability directly links to SAP's purpose, right? To help the world run better and improve people's lives. So that's kind of also our objective and definition of sustainability, to create kind of positive economic, environmental, and social impact within our kind of planetary boundaries we all have. And how do we do that at SAP? We have a dual role. On the one hand, we are enablers, so we enable our customers to use sustainability capabilities we have in our software, and I will talk about that in a minute. But also, secondly, we are exemplars. So, for example, since 2009, when SAP started the sustainability journey, that was kind of the ambition to be an example, to lead by example with being, let's say, carbon neutral by 2023 and run our data centers in the green way, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something where we also can try out things that we then move to our customers. So that's kind of important. And where do we see the biggest impact from an SAP perspective? First, it's about taking climate action, and we call that the chase for zero emissions. And beginning of 2020, we launched a strategic initiative called Climate 21. And with this, we enable companies to have an overview and also to minimize greenhouse gas footprint for their products and also for their operations. I mean, we talked about that when we are in the retail space. We probably do not have too many kind of operations that create greenhouse gas, but when we look at logistics and all the supply chain topics, obviously there's a topic. The second one is going into this zero waste or circular economy area, and glad we have James with us as well, who will later on talk about the green token by SAP idea and software we have. So that's another journey we started. So how to move step by step to become circular. And obviously there needs to be a journey in many steps to make sure that with IT we can help, first of all, to enable supply chain transparency, knowing where the product is, knowing where the raw material is coming from, but then slowly working that also into operative processes to eventually make sure that we kind of start with having the end in mind when we already design product, for example, the fashion space, to make sure that we have an easier process behind to make it circular, right? When we think about different garments, different yarns, to make sure that they are more easily recyclable, for example. And also there's the topic of zero equality, where we need to make sure that we are also socially responsible. And you see a lot of topics down there, what we do, not only SAP internally, but also what we provide to our customers. When we drill down one level deeper into kind of retail or fashion industry, you see a lot of topics, and that's usually the first question when I talk to customers. Where should I start? There are so many things. How can you navigate us through the jungle of topics? And that's why it is quite important to first of all understand, okay, what is your personal vision as a company? Where would you like to go? What are your key priorities? We do the same in our industry, that we have to place our bets from a development strategy. We cannot focus on everything. We need to make sure that we prioritize. And the same holds true for sustainability. And that should just give you an overview why this is so important. And there's also a little kind of help how we structure this from a retail and fashion perspective. And you see similarities on the one hand to SAP strategy when we think of climate action and also circular economy, obviously, but we also believe strongly in retail. It is also about the sustainable brand. So making sure that we address the increased expectations of the consumers for the products they buy, right? It's not only from sourcing via production to delivery. They expect everything to be good for the environment, and ideally also some services on top, because if you don't deliver on this promise as a brand, you will have a big challenge going forward. So that's kind of the three areas we focus on from a retail and fashion perspective. And I will also talk about one or the other example in a second. Just to underline what I just said, this is the kind of intelligent enterprise strategy of SAP, how we help our customers to run their businesses. And just as an emphasis that we last year introduced the topic of sustainability management really at the heart and center of SAP strategy. Right? It is a kind of mandate to look at this topic in kind of every development process and every product we go to market with, to make sure, do we address sustainability measures, right? There are, when we think of retail or fashion topics, when we think of allocation, for example, how can I more efficiently, effectively allocate a product where the demand is? And I could also introduce KPIs of CO2 emissions, for example. What is the shortest distance to fulfill the order from? So this is just ideas and examples where the topic of sustainability moves into the heads of the developers, if you will. I also brought one example. When we think of circular economy, there's also the big topic of new business models coming up, right? So how do you offer new services to your customers, additional experiences? And we have been working with Wipro, for example, and they came up with a fashion rental solution, right? Not just selling the product and moving away, if you will, but how can we crack the nut of having a profitable rental process or solution in place? And obviously that doesn't work for the whole assortment, so you need to be quite careful. But if you found out, for example, in the outdoor space, if you rent, I don't know, a tent or outdoor gear 3 times, then it even becomes more profitable than if you sold it once. So this is something where we also work with partners, because this topic cannot be addressed alone. So that's kind of also the invitation. We also work with customers as an obligation, because you know your business best. What are your sustainability priorities? And that's why I'm also keen to learn from you. What are your priorities? Where are you going? To get inspiration also for our development processes. So it's a win-win. We try to get your priorities into the software. We also extend into a huge ecosystem. And with this, I believe we have the ability and also the mandate to make the world run better and improve people's lives with the help of sustainability. And with this, I'll turn it back to you, Hitesh, to open up the panel and the discussion.
Thank you, Christoph, for this wonderful, insightful presentation. With this, we will open the panel discussion, and I would like to, start the panel by asking the first question to Rohan. Rohan, tell us about the approach that your company has, or the philosophy towards sustainability, as far as Anita Dongre is concerned.
Thank you, Dr. Hitesh. So initially, when the company was going through this transformation of completely getting into sustainable phase, the first thing we did was to take in the approach that we have to be sustainable. We first set a target. In fact, in last August 2020, we made it very public through our initiative called Recognize, that there are 3 components to sustainability always, which is input, process, and output. So we combined all those three major pillars of sustainability within our Recognize pledge, And we also came out with a pledge saying that, by 2025, our garments are going to be made from sustainable fabrics. The processes will have eliminations of a lot of waste, which is generated during the process. And the output is also going to be sustainable in terms of environment friendly ways in which you can discard the garment. So with this pledge not only being subjected to the garments, we also extended it to the packaging, because in fashion space, garment is not the only challenge that we deal with. Packaging is equally the next monster that is coming, and we really need to be careful. Apart from recognize as being a pledge, and then taking the recognize and working on recognize, we then started working towards a carbon footprint. Finally, we finished our carbon footprint, and we started offsetting our scope 1 and scope 2, which was primarily under our control. Scope 3 is yet a challenge, because after COVID protocols and COVID opening, the supply chain is not completely under your control. So that's the major challenge that we still have in India, where most of these supply chains are not under your control. They are under your influence, but not control. And the third, which is the major challenge that we face and we have started working on, is the waste management. Being a retailer, it's always said that what kind of waste are we managing, but there's a huge amount of plastic, polybag, paper, and then also textile cutouts, the waste that we have to manage, because when we saw the carbon footprint study, we saw the major components in scope 3 of waste management were again contributed by this factor. So these three have been my prime agenda of my work since last a year and a half. And apart from it, what we have been doing is we have been then innovating a lot with a new startups that have been coming in, so that we try and get on this idea of innovations and how we can better ourselves wherever it is possible. So this has been the approach of House of Vanita Dongre, and slowly and steadily, hopefully, we will complete all our projects.
Thanks, Rohan. To sum it up, you have taken the pledge by 2025 to have sustainable fabrics. You have got those 3 pillars in place, and you have also decided that the output should be environmental friendly. Although also the more focus on packaging, supply chain, waste management, and startups also as an innovation. I think this is fantastic, Rohan, from the House of Vanita Dongre. With this, I would move to Ajit Pattnaik and ask him about his philosophy of about the philosophy of Raymond's as far as sustainability is concerned. Ajit, over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hitesh. Raymond being a lifestyle consumer brand, we have decided that our strategy should be in and around the consumer. So we did a materiality assessment through an external agency, and also we had our baseline study. So once we identified the baseline and the materiality assessment, a couple of areas it came into prominence, which is not a surprise, of course. One is sustainable packaging. You consume whatever you do in the background in the factories, it should be visible to the consumer. First thing, we have decided that by 2025, 100% will have our sustainable packaging. And second is renewable energy. From 6% current status last year, we have decided by 2025 we will have 30% renewable energy of all the plants, manufacturing plants of fabrics and garment plants also. So, and sustainable raw material. We have decided that by 2025 at least 20% of our raw material should be from the sustainable raw material. And water, 50% of our water should be reused, recycled, or harvested by 2025, and 100% fair wage across the value chain. And we may ask the suppliers to have a SA 8000 certification also. And also, we have decided that we will have 3 million garments exchanged by 2025, which is now currently baseline is 1 million garments. And we have also decided 30% of our women, 30% should be women in our general manager and above category by 2025. So this is broadly the, and also we'll publicly come out, and we have not yet done GRI certified reporting through external validation. And one more point, we are also trying to have a transparency, so that if a person buys a piece of fabric, there should be barcode, and the traceability of our environmental and social footprint should be visible to the consumer. So these are all the thoughts, and we are progressing slowly.
Excellent, Ajit ji. consumer being the focused and the points of traceability, that you can trace your product or the fabric that I'm wearing, whether that lady has got the money somewhere in interiors of India where she's harvesting cotton, and then whether she has got the right kind of remuneration or not. I think that's great, and keeping the consumer in mind is something which is there, and all your 2025 goals are extremely encouraging, Ajit. With this, I would like to move to Tushar and ask him about how Arvind Fashions is taking sustainability and what's the philosophy of Arvind Fashions.
Yeah, thanks, Hitesh, for the opportunity. So in Arvind Fashions, we have a 4-pillar strategy that we crafted after doing the materiality exercise. The 4 pillars are: one is the climate change, where the focus is to decouple the carbon footprint that we have from the growth that is projected for 2025 and 2030. The idea is that we work on our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, but at the same time, look at the larger footprint, which is scope 3. So we are working with different levers, right, from renewable energy and reduction of demand. These are certain things that we are already doing. The second pillar is sustainable products. So our focus is also to increase the sustainability quotient of our products, right, from design, fabric, processes, and the end use. We are trying to do our bit in all the 4 areas to see how the sustainability quotient of the product can be increased, and we can have more product offerings on the shelf for our customers to kind of start looking at the sustainability range. The third focus is definitely the responsible supply chain, which is the requirement of the hour. Why? Because we very strongly believe the larger footprint, I believe almost 90% of the footprint lies in our supply chain, which is a bigger elephant to look at. And, we are working, to be frank, starting with our strategic vendors, because we feel that is the larger chunk of our supply chain and the impact also, to see how we can also bring them on our sustainability journey and create a lot of collaborations, right, from process improvements to creating circular environments for both waste as well as the raw materials going in. So that's the third focus area. And the fourth is obviously social responsibility, where health and safety as well as the CSR bit comes into picture, where we are trying to again go back to our communities and are trying to understand how we can make some kind of benefit or some kind of collaboration to bring the economic upliftment. So these are the 4 broader pillars where we are working, and there are different projects identified in each pillar, which we have different targets for. But that's more probably we'll discuss. Yeah, thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Tushar. The 4 pillars: climate change, sustainable quotient as far as products is concerned, responsible supply chain, and social responsibility. With these 4 pillars, let me move to Uma Shankar and ask him about the well-spun philosophy and the objectives of sustainability. Uma, please.
Thanks, Dr. Hitesh. So, when Welspun started the Anjar factory in 2003, so that's, the entirely, so that was the agent of change in that area. So entirely devastated area, how we have reformed the entire structure. If you now visit our factory, you will see, the factory in a garden. So it's not a piece of garden in a factory. So our chairman's vision in having a factory inside a garden. So that's the approach we are taking, looking at more holistically and also taking the society together. So another aspect in our area is the water scarcity. Anjar being in a very dry and a very low rainfall area. So the first thing we did was, to start the, being water positive campus. So we are 100% of our industrial water need is from, the STP plant. So 30 million liters per day of water we are getting is entire wastewater. So it has got multiple benefits, not only to our, business continuity, but also making the entire environment around our factory much more clean and hygienic. So the whole sustainability, we are looking more holistically, and also it's a journey. So you need everyone together in this journey. So it's not possible to do either top driven or by a few sustainable department. So unless everybody is aligned towards it, so the first thing we need to do is create a culture of sustainability within the organization and also across the stakeholders in the entire value chain. So that's the thing we are trying to inculcate within our culture. Although sustainability was there since beginning by in various terminology or various names, so be it health and safety or CSR, but last 6 months we have revamped the entire structure of approach, and the ESG initiative under a initiative we called Velocity. So it's now more holistic, and everybody on working towards the same goal. So it's now much more focused. And it's not a one of the compliance requirement we see. It's the responsibility of each and every manufacturer, or as a citizen, I would say. So all our global retailers, because Welspun is 90% export based company. So our large retailers are also taking long-term related sustainability goals. So how we can align ourselves towards that? So that's the one agenda. And also as a country, we are part of the Paris Agreement, how we can contribute towards the carbon neutrality or net zero. So it's not only government jobs. I think as a responsible manufacturer, we also need to contribute towards that. So those are the, I think, some of the, I would say, philosophy we are taking, creating a culture of sustainability, and also shifting from, in silos to make it more holistically, so that everyone in the organization is part of this initiative in their own way. So either they can contribute to each pillar, be it, environment, social, or governance. So if I go to the KPIs, these, pillars will have its own KPIs. But I think the most important thing is the creating the culture of sustainability.
Creating the culture of sustainability. And it is the responsibility rather than the compliance. And this has to be the philosophy, which I personally believe each and every organization and individual has to take more from a responsible part rather than a compliance part. With this, let me go to Naresh and ask him about how ABFRL looks at sustainability.
Thanks, Hitesh. ABFRL, which being the largest retail brand in India, we have bouquet of brand, almost 14 brands we have. We started our journey in 2012, program called Re-Earth for our tomorrow. And we started with that 10 mission from energy, carbon, water, waste, product, packaging, CSR, safety, everything. So that 10 mission become kind of soundboard for us, or philosophy for us to start with as a holistic and integrated version of sustainability. We made in last 1 decade very good progress on all these missions. Some of the activity which we did for different aspect of it, be it responsible business, be it supply chain responsibility, be it consumer interaction, we found that it's not just something in periphery, but it's part of the business DNA. I think that is something which we feel very happy and proud to say that, for example, take energy as a mission. We have reduced almost 30% of our energy wastage. Today, we are 35% of our energy sources on renewable. Packaging, which 1 decade before was kind of unheard someone to talk on sustainable packaging, we start reducing and eliminating unwanted packaging. Today, we are almost 90% sustainable packaging. With water, I think in our sector, being a retail company, water is always a last priority. But we started with that water. We want our own operation to be net zero or water neutral. Today, we have 75% of our water is recycled and reused. Even 45% of our water requirement is through renewable water sources. So I think it's not only that business compliance, but it's business responsibility, how you embed sustainability in your business philosophy, how you get to benefit not to your internal stakeholder, but your external stakeholder, how you bring that philosophy for business relevance, a business result, and a business outcome to whole industry and ecosystem. I think that is something which we feel we are able to get to that level of how sustainability is not nice thing to do, but is the ability to sustain. Even during pandemic, we find it as a core theme, us to not only survive, but ability to survive or sustain in long term. So with all that thing, be it product, be it supply chain, be it even now we have looked into entire value chain. And doing all these things, you can't do it alone. So you have to get collaboration within the industry. So we started with the SAC. Perhaps we are the first company, retail company, to deploy Higg index in our system, be it brand or be it facility or supplier. So with all that thing, we are now working with a lot of like-minded people, how to create whole ecosystem, not only in geography and market we operate, but how to learn and how to share best practice, which can be useful many people to adopt and follow. We are part of Alan MacArthur, Make Fashion Circular. In India, we are promoting Circular Apparel Innovation Factory. We are now working with GIZ on circular textile approach. So how to create whole ecosystem, which is much more sustainable, which is much more inclusive, and taking into consideration not only uh, one-time activity, but it's always work in progress. How you get all stakeholder to do something more, be it partner, supplier, vendor, employee, even regulatory. So how to bring all these things together for a holistic and integrated version, something which we feel we have been doing, and we have seen very good progress and outcome on all these things. And that's why on our ESG journey for last 5 years, we have been even external validation. We have been ranked Asia's top sustainable company by S&P Global Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Even that golden peacock, most sustainable company. So all these validation and external accolade give you more confidence that whatever you are doing is on track, and you need to keep doing something more, because it's always work in progress and it's journey. What Uma also mentioned, it's journey. So you have to keep that journey into the right direction. Now we are transiting towards 2025. We have taken very challenging and difficult goal and task, but with all that support and with all that motivation, because it's business benefit and relevance, we are sure that we'll be on right trajectory to achieve that target.
Okay, thank you, Naresh. I think that was a good summary. I will sum up in 2 words that it has to be sustainability has to be the DNA. It has to be the business DNA rather than anything else. With this, let me move to Christoph and ask him this question. For SAP, please share a few success stories of how fashion retailers have been able to improve their business and bottom lines, by embracing sustainable business practices. Over to you, Christoph, please.
Thank you, Hitesh, for the question. Yeah, it's a global one, right? So there are so many topics, and I pick a few, and a few were already mentioned, and luckily I have the pleasure also to work with many of you. So sustainable packaging is one that drives especially the fashion retailers. So when we look at the Swedish fast fashion brands, for example, they did really move away from too much plastic in their packaging and also in their shipping methods. So they went into recycled paper. So that's a big topic where we are working on. But I would like to take a step back where SAP is really helping, not just dedicated examples, but really globally, if you will. So there was one example also in the crisis we are currently in, how to predict the unforeseen, also with regards to sustainability, less waste, and making sure that the product is where it belongs to. So we did adjust our forecasting algorithms, for example, and with that, every customer who is running that forecasting algorithm has this ability already to respond to unforeseen situations more quickly and in a more agile way. So we did that, for example, with a supermarket chain in Switzerland. We also did that with some fashion brands where they said, oh, yeah, I can now really even more trust the system to be more, let's say, agile, more effective in my delivery methods, also my planning. And this comes back also to another customer from Germany, for example, Veale. They create accessories. So how can I use this in my planning process already to make sure that I don't plan too much in order to avoid waste, and make sure that I only plan these articles that are really demanded at the end of the value chain, which is the consumer. Secondly, we work a lot with customers in the area of kind of supply chain. The big sports brands are the best examples. So how can I make sure that I move away from, let's say, the sequential supply chain, that I need to today place, for example, a purchase order 6, 9, 12 months in advance. And we all know that the world is changing quite quickly. So how can I make sure that I also, together with companies that are currently in the call, make sure that I have a handshake in the planning process. So making sure on the one hand, dear manufacturer, I need to have 10,000 pieces, but I will tell you slightly later how the color distribution is, how the size distribution is, to make sure that I really avoid waste. This is a big topic, obviously. How can I optimize the supply chain? And especially the sporting brands are a big driver there. And last but not least, I also would like to talk about this topic of inventory visibility. So we have introduced, and customers are in that call who are actually implementing it, an integrated platform that is starting with the mill production, going over manufacturing down to retail, to make sure that formerly you had 3 separated systems, 3 separated inventory buckets, you didn't have visibility amongst each other, that you can run one integrated process. And this alone will save a lot of overhead in every process. So these are, let's say, the topics we are working on. And I know there are a few nice brands like Allbirds, for example, we are working with to create sneakers without plastic and these kind of topics. So there's multifold, and it's an exciting thing. And one thing that struck me the most, you mentioned that as well, Hitesh, in your summary, sustainability is not something that you add on top. It needs to be really inside your DNA, so that the thinking needs to shift a little bit to make sure, if I design a product, if I distribute a product, is that really sustainable? Is that the best I can do? Or do I just do it because I always did it like this? And obviously we probably all agree that we cannot continue like this. So we have to challenge ourselves to come up with more innovative ideas.
Thanks, Christoph. With this, I would like to ask the next question to Rohan, and this is, and to all others as well. Zero waste is the ultimate goal for all the retailers. If you can share some of the innovations, you may be engaging towards achieving the same, especially with regards to product and material designing. Rohan.
Thanks, Hitesh. So see, when it comes to zero waste, even with our waste management and scope 3 of carbon emissions, as I was previously talking to you, we have done this study with Veale, and they have categorically given a waste a good segregation. So now we have a textile waste, a plastic waste, a paper waste. So this textile waste, when I talk to you about, this is called chindi, the pre-consumer waste and the post-consumer waste. So what we have done is, any which ways we are following the Ellen MacArthur principle that any textile which is rental is more dangerous than the original garment, and we have an entire 22-page study on that. So we avoid rentals. First of all, we don't even get into that space. Secondly, what is happening is create a product which requires less of environmental elements, like less of water. So what example, if you have this chindi, the textile waste, you create rugs out of it instead of a t-shirt. You wash that t-shirt thrice a month. Instead a rug, you only wash it once a week. So you're using less of water. So all these categories for using a textile waste into a good repurposed product is something that we have been advised by Veale. So we've started engaging with those NGOs which can create these things. For example, your shopping bag, you don't wash it every day, but your t-shirt that you wear to your office, you wash it every day. So convert those textile waste into a bag, the usage of water for its second life is less. Similarly, plastic. We started engaging with one of the two of the best recyclers in Mumbai, which collects all the poly bags and then they recycle. We started using recycled sellotapes. We started using recycled gunny bags. All of a plastic, in fact, right now is recycled. A paper waste is now we tied up with paper mills, which recycle all of our corrugation, e-commerce corrugations. All this is getting again recycled. Now, when it comes to the e-waste, the laptops and everything, we again have a player in place. When it comes to water treatment, we have a water treatment right at our head office, which is installed, which then it's an excellent ETP plant, which gets completely managed by an outside facility and then looks at water waste. And then we use that water again back for our gardens, and again we use it for our own usage domestically. So what I'm trying to explain is that, with the help of an external consultant, we have basically broken down our waste, be it textile, be it packaging, be it, even the outer admin facilities, into 5-6 buckets. And now what we are trying to do is get into the word circularity. We don't want to waste or get new raw materials back into the supply chain. What we are trying to do is what we have, how do we manage it circularly proper, so that it is brought back into the supply chains and we can use it over and over again. So that's how we are trying to manage our waste.
Thanks, Rohan. Tushar, your views on zero waste, a proposed product and material designing.
Sure. So I think we are also working on both the product as well as the packaging, because both play an important role when we talk about zero waste. Specifically, if I talk about the packaging, we are very focused on the plastic right now, obviously because of the regulation also playing its part. But what we are trying to do is create an ecosystem where the plastic is rotated within the same cycle. So if you ask me, plastic is not bad if it's within the same cycle. The problem with plastic is it's not being brought back into the cycle. So that is where we are trying to establish the ecosystem where at least the plastic that is going out of our kitty is brought back into the system. We are working on designs. We are working back with the players on ground, which are actively collecting the plastic and are able to supply 100% recycled plastics. So a small example would be we changed the plastic trims in our shirts packaging to 100% recycled from virgin. So that was something that we did last season. So these are certain things that we are doing on the packaging front. Obviously, we're working around the tags, the corrugated boxes and everything. On the product side, the focus is three-pronged. The first is definitely to look at the fabric, how we can bring in more sustainable fabric in terms of, let's say, it can be BCI cotton, it can be recycled polyester or recycled cotton coming back to us, because we believe that rather than using virgin, can we increase the mix of recycled fabric into it? The second is definitely the focus on the chemical process. Can we shift from hazardous to non-hazardous processes? So I believe some of the companies that we have on the panel are already joining hands with ZDHC to kind of push the supply chain from hazardous to non-hazardous chemicals. We are also kind of looking at it very actively now. And the third thing is that we look at the trims. Whatever are going with the product, can we again eliminate wherever possible? And if we are not able to eliminate, can we create a system where they are reusable? So these are certain areas where we are focusing right now through some collaborations, innovative projects, and obviously some by changes of design that we are trying to incorporate. That is what we think we are trying to do. Plus the pre and post-consumer waste, fabric waste. We are very actively working towards, seeing whether there is a possibility, commercial possibility of recycling beyond the mechanical recycling, which is the more evident and the more available option right now. So we are kind of exploring innovative options over there as well, but it's a very early stage and a long journey, to be very frank. So that's about from me. Yeah.
Thanks. Ajit, this question is for you now. Obviously the zero waste is the ultimate challenge, but this is more from the using reverse logistics also. So what are your thoughts on using reverse logistics to reduce wastage? If you can throw some light there.
Yes, I will say 2 points. One is people use garments, and we collect back garments around 5 lakh every year. In exchange with free tailoring. We give them free tailoring in our garment exchange program. Every year, more than 5 lakh garments are collected back from the consumers, and we give back to those in need, maybe to the NGOs, or we recycle them. And the second is the user stage. We are also promoting digital pattern making to the retailers. We have around 1,000+ stores and many MBOs. So for example, a consumer buys for stitching a shirt, consumer needs around 1.6 meter of fabrics. So we are encouraging digital pattern making, computer-aided digital pattern making, so that the optimum use of pattern is made, optimum use of fabric in making a pattern is made. So at least 10 to 15% less consumption takes place for the consumer. So instead of buying 1.6 meters, he can buy 1.4 meters, and the shirt can be done. So we are using technology in that front, and we are encouraging the retailers, I mean our Raymond shops and the attached tailoring unit, to adopt digital technology so that the consumer he can buy less fabric, and it is a reduction of waste. And third is actually the reuse and recycle of waste and treated water also in the factory premises. So at 3 levels. One is in the factory premises, we recycle, reuse, and we use the dyes are also certified dyes, so that less pollution, less wastage. Second is we buy back the garments, used garments from the not buy back, we give them rather free tailoring, and we collect back from the consumers. Third is if they buy to make a shirt or trouser, they will be using less fabrics by digital adoption.
Okay. Thanks, Ajit. Uma, your views on using reverse logistics to reduce wastage, and also from the zero waste objective or goal with regards to product and again material designing.
Yes, Dr. Hitesh, I think reverse logistics is a really bigger task, because we are a 95% export dominated company. So if you consider the post consumer part, I think that's a very big task, which is very, very difficult to implement at this moment in a large scale. But we are doing some pilots so that we can do the at least proof of concept with some select partners. So reverse logistics is going to be a challenging task. It's a more, I think I see as an ecosystem and more of a collaborative. We need to be everybody in the value chain, right from the retailers to the aggregators, recyclers. So I think it has to be a whole ecosystem needs to be developed to reach at a scale. So that's related to the product part of it. But something could be even done, reverse logistics for packaging, which could be much more meaningful, at least the secondary packaging part, if we can do that. So that can also do a lot of benefits to the environment, so that, larger, secondary packaging like say pallets or PDQs, which are really very, very expensive, and that is very durable also. So can we look at, bringing those back and use it multiple times instead of using virgin? So those are the possibilities. One is the textile part, other one is the, the packaging part. But zero waste from the product design perspective, if I say, as Oilspun, we have revamped the entire scrapyard, so that they can be much more organized, and we do the, segregation of the waste at the source of generation. So that, in the organization, we have so many, various kinds of materials running, and if we end up mixing everything, then it's become much more difficult for, recycling or reusing. So first of all, we need to segregate each and every waste at the source of generation. So that we have done, so that with the proper barcoding, proper, identification, so that our scrapyard team, they get, all things properly, organized manner. So that's the, one thing we have done. And also, working on the all, scrap we generate. So if we give a number, so Oilspun generates close to 20,000 metric ton of various kinds of waste. So be it textile, plastic, paper, metal, and wood. Textile, at least the pre-consumer part, we are trying to bring back at least 30 to 35%, bringing it back to the circularity. Plastic, we have done, tie up with some of the startup where they are using our, industrial packaging waste, be it LDP or, PP, those kind of things. Can we mix it back for the secondary packaging at least? So those kind of pilots we have done successfully, using 30% at the lower side and as high as 100% also sometimes. And Oilspun being our group company, having into the steel and pipes, So all our metal scrap, be it the various kind of metals we get, so those are also giving us the opportunity to bring it back to the circularity by giving it to our group companies for steel and pipes. Also, in terms of paper, we have our sister company called GRG. So they are into the paper corrugated box manufacturing. So it also helping us to bringing back all the paper back to our packaging material. So various initiative going on, and it's not only restricted to textile and packaging. In fact, we have converted entire of our sludge, ETP sludge, back to biocoal. So we could replace close to 20-30 metric tons per day of our coal consumption by replacing with the biocoal, which is generated from the sludge drying. Also, I think in textile, if you know, there are so many very small kind of small length fiber fragments being generated. It could be either sweeping, or it could be into the very small dust, which is difficult to recycle for the traditional process. So can we do the composting of those things and use it for gardening or say organic farming? So I think circularity is possible to adopt each and every small element of our process. So it's not only the textile or plastic. We need to look at each and every line item of say 20,000 metric ton. So that way we are creating the culture, and also measuring the impact, so that you have everything on your database, what we are doing with each and every line item. So the creating a database and creating the awareness across inside the organization is also helping us to get into circularity. So reverse logistics post-consumer is the bigger task. I think that will happen, that will take some time, especially for the export market, export-oriented units. But at least we can take care of the pre-consumer space. That's also the very large opportunity we have for each and every manufacturers or retailers.
Okay. Before I come to Christoph and James, Naresh, in succinctly, how are you addressing this challenge of zero waste?
I think in our system, we are zero waste to landfill. None of our waste goes to landfill. It's 99% is recycle, reuse, or upcycle. Only 0.8% is which goes for incineration and other things. So one thing is that we have very good system to track it internally, segregate it, and give it to certified recycler or authorized people who will upcycle it or recycle it. That is one thing which we have established very well in last couple of years. Other thing is we are working on resource efficiency. Waste is not only material waste or packaging waste. Waste is everywhere. For example, water. Water is one of the resource. So we are 75% recycle reuse for our water. 45% is regenerated or renewable water. So water, we are perhaps water neutral and water positive, one resource. Waste, we are waste neutral. None of our waste goes to landfill. And pre-consumer waste or manufacturing efficiency waste marker, we don't, we use digital sample making. We use digital pattern making. Even that paper which is used in factory, in garment industry for marker efficiency, we use it recycled paper. We are able to save 15 ton of fresh paper with that. So I think all that internal resource efficiency, we have made very, very good progress. Now we are taking it to external stakeholder. How we do that material optimization and its entire stage, be it design and product development, be it manufacturing and sourcing, or be it at a warehouse or RDC. A lot of waste in a warehouse happen. Perhaps we are the only one not to buy in our pantaloon any single fresh carton. Everything is recycled. Our warehouse is perhaps only platinum certified warehouse where we have net zero kind of concept. So all these resource efficiency within the system is well optimized. Now pre-consumer waste, particularly fabric waste, our own sister concern, Birla cellulose, we are giving to them and they are converting back into pulp. We are even using that fabric waste to make our garment. Recycle part recycled polyester, recycled cotton, even regenerated pulp is also coming back now to our system. So early stage of claiming it circular, but I think we are very much in that doing that business case for that circular. It's not only good thing to do, but it's business case to do. And how you can convert your pre-consumer waste back to your raw material. And that is the closing the loop, something which we are working. A long way to go in terms of post-consumer waste, but we have started something to bring old clothes from consumer, encourage them not to throw their clothes to the landfill, encourage them to bring back, and then we upcycle or recycle early stage to regenerate it or close the loop. But I think we are trying to orient consumer also for that recycle, reuse, and circularity in that way.
Thanks. Thanks, Naresh. Next question is for Christoph and then subsequently James. You all saw our colleagues here, have shed light on how they are approaching zero waste, which is ultimate goal for all the fashion retailers regarding product, material designing. We spoke about reverse logistics. So, Christoph, according to you, what is the core of creating a sustainable customer experience? And what would be the challenges that you see or you have seen in your experience that the retailers do face, in executing all this?
I mean, the core of customer experience is first of all getting the customer in the center, right? So that's I believe the key every retailer, every fashion company needs to do. Once you have cracked or understood this and put this also into your company's DNA, then I believe there will be some waste in your processes or activities because you cannot match them anymore saying, okay, this is customer centric. So that's the first thing. And I believe this is where we are at the first challenge within retailers or companies in general, that it's about change management, that you need to move away from a more, let's say, product-centric organization to a customer-centric organization. Many companies have great products, but they keep it and not look at the market and the customer, what they try to tell them. I believe this is the biggest challenge. Once you have cracked this one, I believe then it depends on the company itself where to move in, whether it is the seamless integration of channels, for example, when we think of the brands we have here, can I combine the online experience with the store experience? Do I know what the consumer has bought online if he or she enters the store? Can I fulfill my promise? This is more supply chain related. Can I fulfill this? Do I have the right transparency in my business when we are back at the topic of sustainability? Can I show the consumer where the raw materials are coming from? Who has produced it, what was the transportation lane. So this is another topic, obviously, that I see with a lot of companies. And then also, so the mechanisms, moving slowly over to James, how to get transparency and how to have a mechanism to be sustainable in one or the other area. This is obviously where Green Token can help to take the next step in these challenges.
Thanks, Christoph. James, your views on this question, please.
Yeah, no, I think, I echo what Christoph says. So the company that we founded is exactly that. I mean, I hear everything I've heard today, I've heard before with other customers we work with. Consumers want sustainability, but how can you prove that your fashion product is sustainable? Because, on the shelf, it's going to look exactly like, on the rack, it's going to look exactly like a conventional product, a product not made with all the efforts the team here are putting towards sustainability. And that really comes down to traceability and transparency. So customers want proof. They want to easily audit the fashion item they're buying. It could be like scanning a barcode or QR code. And then they want to see why, the members here are making that claim, why you're making a claim that it's better for the world than something else. And really, that's where Green Token, that's why we invented Green Token, because whilst from the production to the wholesaler to the reseller, that part of the chain, the upstream, is very well catered for in terms of traceability and transparency, batch numbers, invoices, all the like. The raw materials isn't. The raw materials, by their very nature, get lumped together, get shipped in mass. There's a lot of pre-processing where you lose a lot of these ESG facts, and that's really why we invented Green Token. And I'll be happy to show you what we've done.
We look forward for your presentation, James, after this. Now, we are getting into the final round of the deliberations here, friends. This is a question which, you can sum it up like this way, that what would be the 3 key areas that you are pursuing, or what are the 3 key initiatives that you are currently running? And you may be, executing many of them, but in the interest of time, I would request each panelist to chalk out the 3 key initiatives that you are doing, and what are the 3 key challenges that you foresee that can, help us to, come with a better solution. So we'll start with Rohan, the 3 key areas, initiatives, and the 3 key challenges. Rohan, please.
Thanks, Dr. Hitesh. I think the 3 challenges that we are working right now is renewable energy, because that's the highest thing that we have under scope 1 and scope 2. Secondly, that we are looking at right now is circularity, because right now, again, when I talk about stores, and I think I can speak very freely for even the other gentlemen over here on the panel, most of our stores are not under our controls. Either they are leased, either they are franchised. So implementing something in my store versus implementing something in a franchise store is completely different. So again, the waste management that happens in my head office or in my store versus a franchise store versus an MBO or versus an LFS is completely different story. I can collect back the polybags from my store, but when it comes to LFS, there are thousands of other protocols. So that's circularity is something that we are very keenly attached to. And thirdly, with our grassroots initiative, what we are trying to get into is more and more raw material which are sustainable, also which has a very good end of life cycle. So these are the 3 things: first is renewable energy, circularity, and third is raw material, better raw materials with circularity.
Fair enough. Any challenges? No, or these are the challenges that you are telling, and what are the 3 key initiatives that you are currently pursuing?
So, we are facing definitely the challenges along it. I thought that, because of the lack of time, I'm just going to name them. But yeah, this challenges, like I said, for circularity, like I just explained the shop example.
Yeah.
Similarly, for renewable energy, you all know that China is right now under a coal restriction and even the electricity. Similarly, Surat is also now going to go on those strikes. So again, for us, because we don't have a raw material in-house production like Raymond does, the other companies does. We depend on the outside vendors for that. A small hiccup in the production cycle causes a lot at the end. It's like a ripple effect. So again, the renewable energy plays a very, very important role for us. And when it comes to the grassroots circularity, the third point that I was talking about, it's very difficult to find, for example, I can also point you a very recent example of Sabyasachi and H&M where, the artisans actually had a case done. If you look from both the point of views, both played a very fair role. So, when it comes to us grassroots, we want to be, an employment generator for these artisans, but we don't want to get caught up in very wrong hands from the other side of the view. So when grassroots as an initiative by Anita Dongre is looking at the artisans empowerment, we also want to ensure that, the artisans are actually empowered. Okay. We reach out to all those people and just not depend on the only the very conventional way of producing textile and selling it off. So we want to get into the rural areas of India, which we are not present right now. So that's the 3 points that we're looking.
Thanks, Rohan. Tushar, what would be your 3 initiatives and challenges?
Sure, I think one is definitely towards traceability, because everything boils down to data and what impact you have. So that is one focus area for us going forward, big one. The second is to create more sustainable garments and bring, or existing ones to increase the sustainability quotient of our products. That's the second thing. And third is, to reduce and eliminate waste wherever possible and create an ecosystem for circular waste management. So these are our broad 3 areas where probably we would be focusing more going forward.
The challenges are, it's a supply chain which is disrupted very recently, and they are just trying to grapple with the whole situation. And now we are hearing news from China and other parts of the world where the disruptions are of a different kind. So I foresee that these will be the challenges in the near future, where bringing everyone on the same page will be a bit difficult, because the supply chain is a bit distorted right now, and there may be certain more distortions going forward. So that's one big challenge that I foresee. The second is that when you talk about traceability, we do have visibility till tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers in most of the cases. But going beyond them, trying to understand whether we can have visibility right back to the farm, and can form the chain in an appropriate manner, not just depending on third parties, but having a mechanism which is more transparent and available to us at a click, is something that's another challenge probably we'll try and see how we can address going forward. Sure. I think these are the two main challenges, and I would close it at that. Yeah.
Thanks, Tushar. Ajit ji, your key focus areas, please. 3, you can just name them. We cannot get into the details in the interest of time. We can name the key areas and the challenges, please.
Sustainable packaging is the number 1. Renewable energy number 2, and reuse, recycled, harvested water is the 3rd. These are 3 key initiatives. And the challenges I can foresee or we are facing is, how do you ensure fair wage and fair business practices across the value chain, particularly tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, etc. These are the key challenges. And of course, again, data visibility is a challenge, and if unless that is there, we can't have traceability also. It's easy to say traceability is possible by the coding, etc. But how do you ensure that that is being followed?
Fair enough. I think these are excellent points. I would now move to Uma. Your views, Uma, please. The 3 challenges and the key areas.
So 3 key initiative for us. One is the securing the sustainable raw material for us, which is cotton for us. 80 to 90% of our raw material is cotton. So we have initiated the Veale Krishi sustainable farming project. So that is one of the top priority, how we can expand it. Second is the traceability. Welspun has got the patented traceability solution called WellTrack. So how we can expand it to not only to the premium fibers, but to all kinds of fibers. And there are a lot of challenges, especially for the Indian cotton. So that's we are expanding and moving that to blockchain based platform. And third is the circularity, how we can really enlarge it and embrace across the organization. These are the 3 key initiatives, and challenges I think very similar, like which Rohan and Mr. Pattnaik told, renewable energy and circularity of post consumer. But I would like to bring one point, which is the 2 points. One is the harmonization of the sustainability impact. Everybody is talking its own terms, so there is no harmonization. So how we can bring harmonization of sustainability measurement across the industries, so that it's consumers are not really confused. What is the sustainable material? So I think that is the need of the hour. And also how we can create a level playing field, because if say one manufacturer is embracing a sustainable practices and your competition is not, then how you compete in the market, so that can there be a reward mechanism for the sustainable compliant companies, so that they are really motivated and rewarded for the ESG practices. I think these 2 are the really need of the hour for everybody, so that there is a harmonization and there is reward mechanism for ESG compliant organization.
Okay, harmonization and level playing field reward mechanization is what Uma is telling. Naresh, your 3 key initiatives and challenges, please.
I think that in our case, we are quite advanced in terms of resource efficiency. Our now thinking is more life cycle thinking, how we take a product life cycle as a concept, so that everything revolves around product. One of the initiative which we have taken, moving product life cycle management to life cycle thinking management. How to build that whole concept of sustainability, design, material selection, vendor selection, production, sourcing. We consider product and packaging together. So I'm not taking packaging separate. How you transport it, because in India transportation is also unattended area. So how you transport it, how you distribute it, a forward and reverse logistic. And then finally, very, very critical is how you engage consumer. Because until unless you engage consumer, you will not be able to demonstrate it to your key customer and consumer. So that is one thing, life cycle thinking. Second is that sustainability need to be not for supply chain or company, it need to be value chain. To bring value chain, you need to have a stakeholder, supplier, partner, retailer, consumer, employee, everyone need to be on that value chain. So we are enlarging our philosophy of supply chain more to value chain, how we embrace more and more stakeholder, including regulatory, for more product advocacy and sustainability. Then third thing which we think and we believe that linear model of garmenting is not sustainable. So how you change the mindset of the people to move or transit from current, which is make, sale and dispose model, to make, sale and remake model, moving linear to kind of circular, true sense circular, not just saying circular, is long way to go. And that require, I think, a lot of collaboration. So these are three areas which we will be working on. Then other thing, challenge, what you asked, three challenge. I think the biggest challenge, our industry, it is very fragmented. One side you will find very organized supplier, retailer, or vendor. Other side you will find that extreme side MSME, who doesn't know what is sustainability. So how you harmonize understanding of sustainability, which is useful not for one side of business, but even smallest person of that business, lot of collaboration in that is required. Then second thing is that our industry is laggard in terms of R&D and technology adoption. So how we have that more and more technology, because if you have to get data from person who has 50 machine versus people who have 1,000 machine, you need to have some technology to get it. And third and last challenge is that consumer mindset. Consumer wants something sustainable, but their willingness to pay premium is not there. There is no advocacy, there is no policy which encourage or motivate consumer, brand, company, supplier to adopt more and more. I think that will remain one of the critical.
Thank you, Naresh. Christoph, with this, I would request you to give your closing remarks before we go to the presentation by James. So, you can sum it up what all our esteemed panelists have, discussed.
Wow, that's a big challenge to sum up all the different points.
No, you can sum up the challenges, and how to approach, not the whole one. Yes.
Yeah, of course. So I believe it's all well-known challenges. Let's start with the good news, right? Creating transparency, making sure that we collaborate, aligning on joint measurements, I believe is also a big one. Naresh, you mentioned technology laggards in one or the other area. I'd agree probably in the manufacturing space, in the retail space, I believe it's catching up. So it's a big umbrella, like I also explained in my beginning speech, that there are so many topics, and I believe we have to place our bets where we can do things on our own, and where we also need to collaborate. But because I believe in sustainability, if we collaborate, then we will be all better off. So it's not a truly competitive environment, I believe, because in the future, sustainability, and that's also what I heard, will become a kind of hygiene factor. If you don't have it, we will be gone off the market. So it's up to us to get our act together. So that's kind of the summary I took out of this, and really great insight. Thank you for sharing all this.
Thanks, Christoph, for summarizing that. With this, I would like to thank all our panelists for sharing all their wonderful insights. And it was indeed a pleasure, interacting and deliberating all these thoughts and questions along with you today. We will now move to the next part of our webinar phase, and that is where we are going to have a presentation by Mr. James Veale from SAP. Over to you, Mr. James Veale, President and co-founder, Green Token by SAP.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Super. I'll just maximize it and I'll minimize this. Great. Okay. So really interesting debates you've had here. All the customers we're working on share your ambitions to move to more sustainable packaging, more sustainable processes, certain circularity. And I think, as I said when I answered my question, they're wonderful causes, but how do you prove to your customers and maybe to interesting agencies? We see lots of laws and regulations, especially in the EU, coming along. So how can you convince people that you really are doing what you'll say you are doing? And for that reason, we saw this real problem with raw materials. So this is very much the upstream. You might know them as commodities. Because they ship in bulk, because they tend to have a lot of pre-processing, because you tend to commingle from different sources, you lose a lot of visibility. It's easy to say a garment comes from a certain factory. I'm for sure I have a batch number on there, so I know exactly when it was made. But if you think of the raw materials, the threads, even back to if the cotton is sustainable, has it been used ethical and child labor-free labor to get it to the thread and the yarn stage? All that information doesn't readily come with a raw material. There's nothing you can scan. So you don't have visibility into where your raw materials come from. And then that means you're at really high risk. I mean, for sure, you're at high risk of not getting the value into your brand. You're doing this because consumers want this. And also you might have a company KPI that your board and your financial results depend on hitting, and then we know there's going to be lots of legislation coming insisting on this, so you're at risk of having non-compliance. So that really led us to our vision, which is to create accountability, traceability, really transparency across these raw material supply chains. Now look, there's lots of batch-based systems, but we found a way to do it without using batches, which really suits the way that raw materials trade and are commingled. So I've got a number of use cases I'm going to talk you through now. The first one, and this is our leading use case, we're working very much with the chemicals industry to encourage, and I think one of the delegates said it, to encourage not only mechanical recycling of polymers, but also chemical recycling of polymers. And this is now becoming quite a well-known established process. And I use this example where we're taking some waste plastic, and it could be waste synthetic material, we're chemically recycling, we're making it into feedstock to make new synthetic material. And the way this works, the three concepts we have in Green Token are these. The first one is a digital twin token, and that's why we're called Green Token. So for every, say, kilo of waste, we create a digital twin. And that digital twin, that token, follows the material all the way through the supply chain from upstream to downstream. Whatever's done to the raw material is also done to the token. So that's our first real big concept. So here I can see I've got three different tokens: recycled from post-consumer, recycled from post-industrial, and some virgin feedstock. And it might be I have, my polymer plants, I have 1,000 tons of feedstock, but I have 1,000 tons of tokens as well. And depending on the ratio of green to red to yellow, I'll know the source. Is it from my post-consumers, my old clothing waste? Is it from another source which isn't clothing waste, or is it from conventional? And that's interesting because we can now measure this. We can now tell people, we can make claims, these clothes are 50% recycled from clothing. So that token idea is the main innovation we had. The next one we had was something called mass balance. And all mass balance it's an accounting methodology. It basically says whatever comes into a closed system must equal all the outputs of the closed system. And the best example is your bank account. At the start of the month, you have so much money. you might get paid monthly, so the money goes in and you have all your outgoings. At the end of the month, you can exactly account for my starting balance plus my wages plus all my outgoings and savings equals my end balance. We have the same here. All the raw material coming in plus all the processing I do and products I make equals the what I have coming out. A mass balance is used by many of the certifying agencies, people like RedCert, ISCC. So it's a very well-known procedure. And the last thing we did, the last innovation, the third innovation, was we needed something that talks about trust. It's all very well making this claim, but you're going to be audited. Something's going to say to you, how can you prove that your sneakers are 50% from post-consumer waste? And to do that, we use a blockchain ledger. And a blockchain ledger is really useful because in a ledger, you cannot delete a record. You can only add new records. So you end up building a chain of custody that I can see the tokens were here when they were created from waste. I can see they were here at the chemical recycling plant. I can see they're here when they're being made into synthetic yarns. And I can now see them that they're here when I'm at the marketing level. So that absolute trust and proof was a really good feature of the blockchain ledger we liked. Two other features we liked. One, it's a distributed database, so there's no one actor can make a change or everyone has to agree on the change. We saw in some other supply chains that people would say stuff was green and sustainable when it really wasn't, because it's very easy to make that change and get a premium. And the third thing we like is you can't double count. You know, if I create, you know, if of this 1,000 tons, if 500 tons are green tokens, once I pass them along with the material to the next process, I can't spend them again. I can't use them again. And the blockchain ledger really enforces that rule. So again, it's a bit like a bank account. If I paid someone money, I can't spend that money again. I've given that money up. So that's I got a couple of use cases which could be interesting. This is for synthetic material, and we're very advanced with this with some major chemical companies to date. This one is interesting. We worked with a European fashion house who have an ambition to source all of their cotton from waste cotton. So it's almost identical to the plastics recycling one, the circular plastics, except it's circular cotton. And here you can see, here's my waste cotton collection. And I give that a green token, you know, so 1 token per kilo. Here I have some unknown cotton. I give it a different color token. And it's the same kind of idea. We do some sorting, we do some recycling, we create new cotton yarns, some dyeing. And in the end, you know, I can have this link on my product saying, of this product, 65% is from recycled materials. And if you don't believe me, scan the QR code and I'll tell you where the recycler was, where the yarn mill was, where the sorter was, all the way back to where the collection of the original clothes were. The tokens can carry multi-facts. So the interesting fun thing here is that the tokens never go away. They always exist on the blockchain. So it could be we have a garment, we scan the code and we've seen the token before. So we can start to do a round trip count. We can start to see that this clothing's been round, you know, in 10 years, it might have been recycled 3 times and the tokens will tell us that. So again, we're really proving that circularity. And look, it's not only sustainability facts we can carry. So here's an example of cotton bale through the ginning, the carding, the spinning process. I might want to see the origins. Origin 1 might be sustainable, 2 and 3 might not be. So again, you know, the digital twin tracks that all the way through the process. So I can see, yes, you know, half of it was from the origin 1, which is interesting. But also to add to that, we can then add on other ESG facts. So I might want to prove that my labor in my weaving mills was ethically, you know, fair trade and ethical. We aren't including child labor. So I can add these multi-facts to the yarn as it goes through. So I ended up with a product with lots of facts on it, not only about the origin, about at each process, you know, that the labor was ethical. I can even add carbon footprint information to these tokens. So these digital twin tokens are really powerful. And again, why are we doing this? Because at some point you're going to make the claim, and you or your customer wants to be able to easily audit. So you grab a token and you look for all the times it occurs on the blockchain, and you build up that lovely chain of custody. And I just show you here. So here's an example of the application. This was sustainable soybeans, but again, this could be cotton. So here we can see the areas, the origin areas where they came from. Here we can see the aggregators, the buyers of that. You know, they buy the soybeans en masse. Here we can see them being processed into oil and meal. And here we can see them going to different end consumer products, in this case, nutrition bars. So the physical flows that way, and then our system counts the tokens as they go through. And then I can click on any of these areas within any accounting period. So it could be the last quarter, and I can see all the interesting balances. In this case, we're looking at the ratio of sustainable to non-sustainable. I can drill in its any stage. So this could be a cotton from various farms going to various mills. I could have certified sustainable cotton as opposed to conventional. I could overlay facts such as ESG, you know, whether it's ethically produced, child labor free. This is the kind of detail that we can give you. We wouldn't expose this to the customer, but this is the detail you have included in that chain of custody on the blockchain. And the nice thing is we know where all the farm gates are. We know where the buyers and sellers are. We know where the ginning and spinning factories are. So we can start to add really interesting things like scope 3 carbon emissions. You know, if we had to truck it from this farm to this plant, and we know that distance because we pick up from the goods receipts at these plants and mills, then we can start to have a really good estimate of that carbon emission, that scope 3 carbon emission. We can also add the scope 1 and 2 that we have during manufacture. So we end up with a token that represents the final product, which has origin facts on it, has ethical facts on it, and now has carbon footprint facts. And we know that's the kind of information consumers and also large governments, especially the EU, are going to want to know about your products within the future. And here's an example. This case is that recycled polymer. So we're picking up, this could be old synthetic clothing from various locations. We're putting it through our recycling plants, like our mechanical and chemical recycling plants. We're doing some more processing with the resulting feedstock, in this case, molding to new plastic products, but this again could be fashion, making it into new fashion garments. And you can see here, we've now added in the CO2 footprint. I can drill down into each of these stages and understand where that footprint is coming from. In this case, you know, how sustainable each of these products are. And there's another view into that. So a really simple system which you daisy chain together to build into your complex supply chains. And we've just launched this end consumer app. So I talked about why we're doing this. Really, you know, we want to show to your consumers, your customers, your buyers, the value. You know, you're going to a lot of effort to change your processes, to source correctly. And in doing that, you know, what's the point of doing that if you can't prove it? So we've created this end consumer app. I think the QR codes still work if you want to point a phone at them. I don't know if you can get it from a screen, but if you did that, you would see something like this. And this is for our launch customer, Eastman Chemicals, and they're taking recycled carpet from California and making them into new plastic bottles with up to 80% recycled content. But on this bottle, there's 25% recycled content. And all the information on the blockchain, that chain of custody, we can expose. So you can see all those stages you got back. And we can even expose the certifying entity, in this case is ISCC. So we can attach the certificate that really does prove that that's sustainable product. So look, I'll finish it there. My co-founder is Nitin Jain. My name is James Veale. Our backgrounds are in commodities. We've done lots with agri, cotton, and the synthetic worlds. Our product is Green Token. It's available now, and it was a pleasure to present to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, James, for this wonderful and insightful presentation. With this, I would now request Mr. Madhav Nistala, Director, Retail, Industry and Customer Advisory, SAP India, to give away his closing remarks, vote of thanks, and the takeaway. Over to you, Madhav.
Thank you, Dr. Hitesh. A big thank you to RAI and all the panelists for taking time out. We at SAP are happy to be associated, and it was a very interesting discussion over the last 60 minutes or so. We at SAP are also committed to be a sustainable organization, and we have done a lot of work in this area. But more importantly, all the three pillars that were mentioned, whether it be from bringing sustainability into design, or bringing sustainability into consumer experience, or looking at it from a reverse logistics and the last mile perspective. We are actively working with a lot of retailers and bringing these visions into life. Our role as a technology enabler is to bring this into life. A Green Token is a case in point where we've done work in these and working and enabling these. We also have, for example, a recycling platform, which is available for retailers to be able to put out requirements from a reverse logistics perspective and ensure that the recycling is also done responsibly. What I mean is that recycling does not mean it goes into a landfill again, but how do we ensure that that recycling happens? And that recycling also is certified from responsible recycling. So all of these are options. And I'd like to close by thanking you and giving a view of how we at SAP are also enabling the solutions. Thank you, Hitesh.
Thank you, Madhav. And I once again thank all the panelists for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.